Howdy, everybody. We're back with some RPG horror stories. Thank you so much for joining me in the new little venue we've got here in the new format. Our first story is going to be from user 2 Mini Tomatoes and is titled, I'm Pretty Sure My Wife's DM Hates Me. Story goes as such. For the last 4 years, my wife has been playing with a group that very quickly became close friends. Every Wednesday and Saturday night, she would go on about epic tales and stories that she and her group would get into. Seeing her eyes light up as she talks about her tiefling artificer and his growth and development made my heart swell. She had been wanting to find a group that matches her energy and encourages creativity and told me that she found it with them. I couldn't be happier for her. With permission from the DM and players, I've sat in on some of their sessions on Discord, just listening and watching, and found that everyone's energy was so infectious. They bounced ideas off each other, the DM allowed creativity and out-of-the-box thinking, even rewarded everyone for roleplay and solving issues without bashing people's skulls in. I was laughing with them, even felt my heartstrings tugged at emotional moments. I have to say the DM was insanely great at storytelling and allowed everyone to be the character they wanted. So to start this off, this sounds like an awesome group and an awesome DM. I'm a huge fan of giving out XP for the players and coming up with innovative ways to play and tell the story for just not murdering anybody, So that's awesome. Well, about 6 months ago, they ended their 4-year-long campaign and said goodbye to their beloved group. The DM mentioned she was going to start a new season set in the same world setting with a new adventure 100 years prior to the events that kicked things off. She DM'd me asking if I would like to be a player, and I enthusiastically replied, hell yeah. I've been playing solo TTRPGs for a while because, like my wife, I've had bad table after bad table, and this seemed like the best opportunity for us both to play together, with perhaps one of the best tables we've ever had. Over the last 5 months, DM has been contacting me and other players both in the public Discord and privately about our characters in the world. I asked her for anything and everything she had on the world setting so that I could acclimate a character that would fit perfectly within it. I was given lore and any questions I had, she promptly answered. I asked her what kind of limitations she had or requests, and she said, as long as you play a good aligned character, we Gucci. Apparently she had some issues where people played evil and even neutral characters, and it caused a whole issue. She wants to tell stories of the hero's journey and not worry about every villager being killed for having a bad attitude or looted for precious heirlooms. When I believed I had a good idea of what to expect, I created my character. So, I totally get not wanting evil PCs, especially if they're new to the table. Playing an evil character that can actually vibe with a good aligned party can be really difficult to play. I feel like many people who end up playing evil, they end up playing as very chaotic, and they end up killing basically all who oppose them, instead of playing them a little bit more intelligently, attempting to use the good aligned party to achieve their potentially ill goals. Let's continue this story though. We shared our character concepts like personalities, a bit of our backstories, classes, that sort of thing. There were so many unique traits that we all had, and it was looking like it would be diverse and amazing. The DM wanted us to have a few secrets in our backstory that we wouldn't share with the other members of the group, making for character surprises in-game. She did this in her last session, and they loved it, giving them moments to discover about each other and some crazy roleplay scenes. My secret was that my character was abused and tortured by the gods of this world, a punishment for her bloodline from centuries ago. She was a tiefling runeblade warrior from an Asian-inspired home where she prayed to her ancestors to guide her. They were very spiritual and believed they could fight their inner curse by being better than their progenitor. Unfortunately, most of her family had gotten wiped out by the gods, leaving her and her siblings alive, but scattered. Her goal is to find them and to confront the gods who had done that. Alrighty, I love this character idea, and I love that the idea of the PCs having these little secrets that can be revealed slowly as the story goes on. At the right table, this can create tons of super interesting RP. Let's keep this story going though. The idea was fun, and we hashed out a lot of little details that would make it interesting within the story that was being told. I was all for it and for the drama it would bring. We all have tie-ins to other characters, so I was thrilled to get playing. We had our session 0, in which the characters had already started out knowing each other from attending the same academy. We took on a group mission, and it started our main story. It was a blast, and the roleplay was very good. And that's about where the fun ended for me. From that point on, everything became about shitting on my character. We would go into other towns because that is where the story would take us, but every town apparently did not like tieflings. Every single town. Okay. Hopefully there was a lore primer on potential racism that might occur. Personally, I remember when starting my latest 5e campaign, I touched on potential racism from some of the kingdoms that existed in the world, but made sure to start the PCs in a relatively neutral place so that they could get their feet wet and not have to deal with potentially hostile NPCs immediately off the cuff. If you aren't prepped for it, a situation like this can definitely seem like your PC's just getting shit on the entire time. Let's keep seeing the story though and see where this goes. So, we went to a place with humans and immediately they refused to work with the group because they don't associate with cursed blood. We went to the city of elves where the bulk of the story took place and I had to sit out for 95% of it. The elves scoffed at her, but they were willing to work with the rest of the group. Not a single NPC addresses my character, and my character wasn't allowed in any elven sacred places or inside their city, so she had to remain outside in the camp and fend for herself while the rest of the party would be welcomed. Okay. This is a time to side chat with your DM and ask what the limitations are to the PC/environment and how much of this you can expect. It sounds like the DM didn't give them a heads up that this would be a potential upcoming issue, and if a PC won't jive with the world or will have to deal with a ton of racism, sexism, etc., it's your job as the DM to give your players a heads up. I get the feeling that there might have been some miscommunication along the way here, but let's keep going through the story and see where it goes. I brought up the issues I had. I told her that while I fully understand that there might be people who are untrusting of her, maybe there could be a way that someone might take some consideration to the fact that she's not a bad person. She gave it some thought and said, that sounds reasonable. The next session, a player found a potion that could change one's appearance and snuck out to give it to my character. My character then had a moment of shame for being who she was, and the only way she'd be able to accept it is if she changed who she was entirely. It brought her more strength to prove that she was good, to prove to the world and the gods that she was worthy of being seen as a person and not some monster. There was a scene where she drank the potion and looked human, and then it went to the rest of the group. The group had a moment in which they were involved with the elven children that lasted most of the entire session. It was fun as they got to engage with them and learn about some special alchemical potions, each of them being granted a bonus and a buff for the remainder of their time there. When it finally came to my turn, my scene was of me getting into the elven city and finding one of the children who was part of the group who wanted to learn sword fighting. Since I was a rune blade, I felt I could help them and have a fun one-on-one moment like the group had. Nope. As soon as she had said she was going to help, the DM went, okay, you do that and have a fun sparring session, and then immediately went back to the group before ending the session. In a 6-hour session, I got 15 minutes of playtime tops. Okay, perhaps the DM didn't fully prep everything, but they really should have done more here. Hopefully OP talks to the DM about wanting to do more and have more time to shine, but I have a feeling this DM is a bit lax on this because they just assume this player would be in the backseat due to the rampant racism that's been happening. I'm glad they seem to have found a way to work around the racism so that the story could progress in some way, but this DM really needs to step up and do more. I meshes the DM again, being as polite as I could about the frustrations. My wife and her friends are having so much fun, and it seems like when the DM is focusing on them, everyone is laughing and having a grand time. When we spoke, she told me that the elves are untrusting of anyone who isn't elven, even more so with cursed blood. I told her that there was an orc in the party who had a violent history, and the elves seemed perfectly fine with them, but somehow my character, who had been atoning for their curse for several generations prior, is seen as more untrustworthy. She explained that's just the way things are, and that's what my character was fighting for. I told her it wasn't fun to not be included in the group activities and that I was feeling left out because of this. I asked if I could change the whole curse bloodline plot and opt for something else or just re-roll, and she said not to worry about it because she had a whole story built up for it and it would all make sense when we got there. Okay, good on OP for touching base about their concerns. The DM says to trust them on this, and if you as the DM put that out there, you have to deliver. Part of TTRPGs is a trust between players and DM. You cannot break that trust. I'm personally shocked that the rest of the party is okay with the in-game racism. Perhaps they trust the DM to make this work properly. I know at my table, when this type of thing occurs, the rest of the party may refuse to even help such a person, or if they absolutely have to do things, they'll find a workaround like seeming potentially. But if an NPC is being a shithead like that, they quickly end up on the party shit list, which may or may not have horrible consequences for that NPC. Let's continue though and see where this goes. It only got worse from there. 7 more sessions in, the characters had been guided by the elves to a ruined city where we were supposed to find out what happened. I picked up a relic and it burned me, which I had to take 11 radiant damage and a permanent -1 to my strength score until I could get it cleared through some unknown means. My wife's character picked up the relic with a cloth and was blessed with a light and had gotten a +1 to her intelligence stat. It was a relic of her character's goddess who had started off a major quest line. The downside? She was the only one of the Pantheon who deemed it necessary that my family's bloodline get wiped out. I didn't know what the hell to do. Why would my character be willing to help this goddess who killed her family and kept her and 2 siblings alive so they could live out the rest of their days in suffering and mourning? Why pit my character against the whole group? I asked my wife if this has happened before in their games, and she said it didn't, but maybe the DM was hoping for more drama. I told her I wasn't having fun and that I might just leave, but she wanted to play with me so badly that this was the first table we could both sit at together and have fun. I'm not of the mindset of keeping to a bad table just because, but it is my wife and their previous campaign looked so much fun. I had to hope that by keeping open communication, we could have a good experience. Things got mildly better with my character having some story beats. She found her older brother and saved him from an execution, and I had a little more role play from the other characters. But there were several moments where things felt like I was being picked on specifically. For instance, we had a scene where we were running from a giant, and the DM asked me specifically, "Tanya, what shoes are you wearing?" "Oh, Geta? Yeah, you have disadvantage on your rolls as the wooden platforms of your Getas are getting stuck in the crevices while running," and things like that. She wouldn't ask the others what they wore or how they did things to give them disadvantages, just me. Okay, this kind of sounds like the DM's picking on OP. Perhaps the DM was asked by OP's wife to let them join and they're not happy about it, or perhaps OP's acting in a way that annoys the DM. But if that's the case, the DM needs to address it. I know OP wants to be able to play D&D with their wife, but bad D&D isn't worth it. If I was OP, I'd sit down with the DM one last time and lay out all of the issues, the constant racism with what sounds like no lore priming or warning, the lack of story/RP, and them just constantly being picked on. Like, by the way, who the hell gives a crap about what shoes you're wearing for you to roll with disadvantage? That's fucking stupid. If after that it doesn't get better, either ask to roll a new PC that the DM promises will jive with the story better, or leave the table. I'd personally do the latter. I wondered if it was because I was the only guy in the group, as this is an all-girls table, but I just can't help but feel as I'm constantly being picked on while everyone else is not having to make extra challenge rolls or have times where they aren't even a part of the plot for several sessions. I've spoken with her several times and even brought up the options to re-roll or just politely bow out. But she's told me she has some grand plan for my character that I'll love, and it ties into the overall story and the other characters, so leaving or re-rolling would ruin all of that. Maybe that's it. Could it potentially be some latent sexism, perhaps? I mean, I personally hope not, but it kind of feels like it might be. Let's keep it going, though. We're almost there at the end. I'm at an impasse here because my wife and her friends are having a great time, and if I leave, it will somehow ruin this great plot and their progress. But I dread sitting at the table twice a week for 6 hours a day and get to only chime in when I get any acknowledgement from the NPCs who are even willing to talk to me. Sorry this was such a long post. This has been sitting with me for the past 4 months since we started. TLDR, I joined my wife's group after watching her 4-year-long amazing campaign, and her DM bashes my character every single session despite her saying that this character is essential to her overall story and everyone's backstory. Alrighty, as I recommended a bit ago, if OP is feeling it, try one last time with the DM. But I really just feel like this isn't the table for them. It sounds like they may have done something somewhere along the line to get on the DM's bad side, or the DM doesn't like the idea of a guy butting in on, quote, girls' time. Either way, I don't think this is the table for them, and I recommend they probably try to find a new one and maybe ask their wife to join that one as well. But bad D&D is never better than no D&D. Don't ever do bad D&D. Just do no D&D at that point. Our next story is going to be from our user known as Human A251, titled, "Am I Wrong to Be Mad About Being Shelved?" Story goes as such. Okay, so I posted this in another group, but I figured I should post it here too. Am I wrong to be upset about my character being shelved? So last night I was playing one of my characters in a campaign where we just ended an arc, but it now seems it's the end of the campaign altogether. Before I get into it, I'm going to give a bit of background. The other player plays a tiny kobold who is chaotic good, but more chaotic neutral leaning, and is also a paladin. The way he plays this character is just downright freaking rude. I play an Amethyst Dragonborn who is an Echo Knight, automatically a tank character who is dealing damage. Oh boy, chaotic neutral, the bane of every DM, the chaotic stupid, the fuck it, I do what I want, the alignment where fuck around and find out are daily occurrences, but the find out part often ends up somehow being the DM picking on that player. Spoiler alert, actions have consequences. As a DM, you can ban chaotic neutral if you want, but always make sure your players know that actions have consequences, and it doesn't hurt to gently remind them when their PC is about to do something stupid that there are consequences. Personally, I have no issue for chaotic neutral for seasoned players at my table, but if a new PC comes to me and a new player at that table specifically comes to me and wants to do chaotic neutral and they do not have a ton of D&D experience, it gives me some pause, just because I don't want to deal with chaotic stupid. Throughout the campaign, the kobold player would have him do things that were morally questionable. Not a big deal, but it was the first red flag. Then he would send this kobold into spaces and ruin loot pools by destroying everything because he wants to constantly have antics and funny things, which under normal circumstances is fine so long as the other players get to have fun too. I like to have a little more up because I like the story aspect, and well, thanks to those antics, any chances RP are going to happen are very low. In the beginning of the campaign, it was bearable because we weren't doing a whole of serious things or having too much story. We found a sentient bear, helped a wizard, and then an artificer, and we made our first big enemy, whom my character swore to destroy after they kidnapped one of our favorite NPCs and good friend. This all led us to the main plot, an army of undead reawakened and attacking our main base town where we set our roots. After a really cool siege was set off to stop the scourge where it began and where our problems really started. Scald, which is a location I'm getting from this. Once we got there, this player had it in their head that they should be the only tank, forgetting that my build was already naturally tank and that I should back down because I'm a woman and so is my character. It's a little fucked up. He expressed this many times out of game and was mad when I wasn't willing to risk my character's pet and best friend, a two-headed Cerberus, whom this guy wanted me to send in to die against a freaking ghoul. I'll explain that one later. All you need to know right now is that we were level 4, the ghoul was strong, and this good boy already had low health. His name was Basil, he is a good boy, and he looks like a cross between a Great Pyrenees and a Great Dane. All around 10 out of 10 good boy. Okay, we are already off to a really good start here. Destroying loot, destroying RP chances, and some light sexism out of character. Fuck, I hope the DM's stepping in here. Let's continue onward and see what happens. Anyways, as this was happening, the DM decided we needed to focus more on the battle than fighting with ourselves, and sucked his character into a painting portal, moving us up and down the floors of the environment, trying to kill this thing. We didn't, and it became a problem later. Fast forward, we put the dead to rest by activating a Sussuru and found out an enemy had dug under the walls and was going to revive the BBEG. At this point, this guy was pissed I was hitting harder than he was. Again, I'm an Echo Knight and we are now level 8. He is also mad I have 3 things he doesn't but doesn't want to give me anything useful for. A bag of holding which was filled with potions, all I wanted out of it. We each already had one. He filled his up with freaking scrap metal. And a portable hull, a pocket space that can be filled with medium to large objects. Apparently he wanted those really badly and was mad when I filled the portable hull with gold and treasure and pieces of art and some books. And also a magic book which gives you a +2 to your constitution. I traded bracers for the book reluctantly because he kept pestering about how it's better for his character who is already at max constitution and I was sitting at a 16. But he felt I should have just given him the other things too just because he wanted them and told the DM how he wanted those things. Okay, it sounds here like a conversation needs to take place. Kobold player is being a bit of a dick and he's also being a bit competitive. If you have players at the table who are kind of butting heads together, as the DM, you need to pause and talk it out so that way it does not build and build and build until you get a massive explosion of bullshit on your hands. Let's keep this story going though. When we went to go fight the BBEG and resolve our campaign, we found our enemy dead and I was a bit miffed about it, but still found a way to make a storytelling up a bit. Something we haven't really had in a while. We climbed a ziggurat and found a death as our BBEG, and I take the head of the enemy and proceed to initiate the RP. DM asks me what I'm saying, and before I can even get through my first bit of RP, the other player talks over me loudly and states he is activating his rocket lance and attacking. I was pissed. Months of going along and doing his plane and sometimes mine, and him whining about magic items and how he doesn't have enough, only to have him do this. I was in a pretty bad mood the freaking rest of the game, to the point where I just couldn't care anymore. He whined and moaned and hounded and was a racist and misogynist both at the table and out of game. And he gets what he wants. Okay, first off, if one PC is interrupting another, it happens, players get excited and everybody sees something cool and wants to act. The DM needs to allow the first person to talk to describe what they're going to do first, and then we potentially would want to break things down from there. Secondly, out of character sexism and racism needs to be handled. This really shouldn't be a thing at tables. If it's allowed, this might not be the table for you or for OP. Let's keep the story going though. When all was said and done and he got to kill the BBEG because PC buried me further under rubble, we blew up the ziggurat, I just stopped caring about the game. We went back to our town and this motherfucker says his character gets into a wagon and leaves town altogether to never be seen again. Then the player looks at me and says, I don't want to play with character's name anymore. To which I respond, fine by me, because I'm not playing with you in any game ever again. And our DM is caught in the middle because he is my husband and that is his friend. He doesn't handle conflict well and I'm not dealing with this guy anymore. Okay, wait. DM is OP's husband? Not saying OP needs preferential treatment, but you'd think the husband would want to stand up for them at the table. Also, you'd think that the kobold player, who's DM's supposed friend, would be respectful to his friend's spouse. I can understand not liking confrontation, but if a conversation had happened a long time ago, this blow up could have been avoided. Every time I have been forced to apologize and sacrifice my character's potential and my experience for this guy to just not throw a fit. He constantly threatens to kill my character just to get what he wants. To make things worse, he gets to keep playing that character because he has a separate campaign just for him, where that character and his other character are the same person and just fragmented into different pieces. Mine just gets to be shelved and I will probably never get to play her again. And I was more mad about that than anything. Am I wrong for being upset about this? Am I wrong for being upset that he gets to get away with bad behavior and being freaking mean and I get punished for it because the one time I get upset about it, he treats me and the game, I'm suddenly the problem? He sat there and claimed I was racist to his character. He literally called my character a useless lizard brain and a dumb bitch multiple times, constantly threatened to kill her, beat her up, and sell her meat. But he did have any example of me being racist to a kobold as a dragonborn. Am I wrong to be upset about this? TLDR, player takes issue with me being a natural damage-dealing tank class and tries to force me to stand down as a tank and be support. When I don't, he whines about not having enough magic items and abuses my character by being misogynist and threatening to kill her. I finally get upset and stop caring, and he doesn't want to play with me anymore. Feeling is mutual, but only my character gets shelved. He still gets to play. Okay, I'm just going to say it. This table isn't for OP. I might want to have a conversation with my spouse if I was OP because he's enabling his douchey friend, and you'd think the husband would want to stand up for their significant other to at least some fucking extent. OP could find a new table and take this PC idea with them to that table and try to get some actual play time out of it and hopefully a more friendly environment. Our last story is going to be from user Feofice. I probably mispronounced it, so I apologize if you happen to be watching this video. And it's titled, When Not Dumping Con is Considered Power Gaming. Story goes as such. One of my player's good friends joined a campaign as a complete newbie to D&D 5e. She decided to play a druid. The DM in her game helped her set up stats in some of her abilities, but not many and not well. She was struggling to have any fun in sessions as she ended up taking a dirt nap every time they entered combat and felt she was pretty useless in the party. She joined our gaming group for a little bit to get some help with her sheet and ideas on how to be more useful and have some more fun. We all took a look at her sheet and offered suggestions. Things that immediately stood out. Con was a dumb stat at an 8, and Int was the highest stat at 16. We later learned that she started with a con of 6 and later took an ability score increase just to get it to 8. Okay, I gotta wonder if they rolled for stats here. 6 for con is really fucking dangerous. Also, I wonder if she knows that wild shaping is a thing as a druid. Perhaps the DM didn't explain this to her. One way to help a druid feel a little bit tankier, they're not super tanky, but they can be a little bit on the tankier side, is their ability to wild shape. Also, intelligence is the highest stat's a little confusing as well because druids in 5e tend to use wisdom as their spellcasting stat. I feel like this DM has led the player astray, intentionally or otherwise. Adjustments should be made to this character to make them more enjoyable for the player if they are still at this table. Let's continue our story though. No level listed, and there was great confusion as to which level she was. The DM had not disclosed to her ever. She had to badger her DM via text to get that so we could do better understand things and help her with a more accurate sheet. Level 9 is what she finally said the party was at, or he, excuse me, but also wanted to know why she thought that was important information. What the fuck? Okay, whoa. That's a red flag there. Why would you not tell your players or player what level they're at? Does the DM think this player's fucking stupid? Good Lord, let's keep this story going here. No ranged weapons, only scimitars and daggers for fighting in melee. Missing over half of her class features, including wild shape. Okay, that's probably why she's not tanky, and most of her spells. She had no stat blocks for wild shape and wasn't aware it was even an option. This was partially on her for struggling with the player's handbook, but we were a little incensed that her DM couldn't even be bothered to help a newbie out with something so glaringly missing. As we were reviewing and giving her feedback, she and our DM were texting to the DM of her campaign for more information to help us interpret and fix her sheet. In response to the question, why does she have only a con? The DM replied, LOL, power gamers. And then, as long as you're in a fun campaign, it doesn't matter. Except, it wasn't a fun game, in large part because of the con dump consequences and putting a fragile character in melee while missing most of their class and subclass features. Of course, if you want to dump con and enjoy that as a challenge, go for it. But what DM considers that a fun option for a newbie and also considers it power gaming to not dump con? Anyway, we invited her to our group and helped her make a better character that she had much more fun playing in our game. Holy crap. Missing a feature or two. Okay, it happens. Multiples of fucking sin. If you, as a DM, don't have the ability or time to properly help your player build a character, ask another player to help. As a DM, obviously, we have a lot to do, but it's important to make sure your players are set up for success. It helps them to have more fun, and if they're ready, your sessions will run smoother. As a DM, I want my players to have fun and succeed, and if that means helping them build their characters through a very hands-on approach, I'm going to do that hands-on approach. I'm glad this person's out of this table. This DM's a fucking douche. Picking optimal stats to make your highest stats those is not power gaming. It's playing the game. Good Lord, though. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the new format. Please bear with me as I'm kind of learning and getting everything set up, and we're like working on quality levels and such, and like maybe new environments and whatnot. But that's going to be it for today. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. I love getting to see all your guys' comments. I try to get around to commenting back and interacting as much as I can. Don't forget to catch me on Twitch if that's what you all are into. And I will see you guys all in the next one. Have a lovely one, everybody.